Now it's the 19th
Okay.
and the 20th.
So the other option, you should
Okay,
be able
so-
to do here.
Just select AirDrop.
So here, you should also be able to,
So
sorry, my eyesight is so
11
really
flowers and then 21st.
It doesn't work by sending it by email.
I think that's the
what I would
20th.
try.
But, well, let's verify.
Oh, that's what Lisa said too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But when we did, okay, so when we went to this one, it was light hang focus and floor install.
I mean, I can post it to YouTube.
So it's
There's
all
no reason why that's
so
I'm
you should
looking at
also be
everything
able
else.
to,
technical stuff.
oh, it's not coming up here.
What happens
Oh,
if
yeah,
I?
anyway, so see my
Right.
Mac is coming up.
Okay,
It should also offer to send it to the Google Drive. I don't know why it's not.
okay, so
But
what, now I
if you
select,
press that, yeah. And then on my end, I might have to,
yeah, that's the thing. I couldn't understand what to do on your end.
it's waiting. And I think I have to accept it.
And then you could forward it to my email. Lisa's just helping me figure out how to broadcast the video we did in the theater last Wednesday. This iPhone doesn't want to send a 45-minute video.
Yeah, this is, generally speaking, we would use like Choreo because we had to so many videos. We would just AirDrop. Is it still thinking?
It's still saying waiting, yeah.
Have you?
So do you need to do anything at your end?
Should be. Hold on a second, actually, maybe I did. Oh, yeah.
It says only the theater is available.
The booth.
Theater and then we're going May 17th.
So what I was trying to imply there is between May 17th and May, either the 19th or probably either the 19th, that the sound designer and the lighting designer can go into the theater and do their work.
Let me dig around my computer here for a minute, see if I need. Mine does say that it should.
So do you have, as others have other questions while we're trying to?
Yes, my
Good.
first is it possible for you to send me a link to attend class virtually for next Monday?
For a class?
Like instead of being here in person?
Oh, of course, yeah,
Because otherwise I'll be like 20 minutes late and I'd rather just like
sure,
shack up where I am and it would really help me.
that's fine.
It's also going to depend on if I can do that for my design methodologies class, but.
Okay, well, I mean, you can watch it anywhere. So you want to be on broadcast or you want to,
I
Okay,
wanna
so
be
I'll
with
ask you-
guys, I just.
don't want to be here? Okay. We won't take it personally.
I'm sorry, where is your video again? Your photos. Oh, is that it?
Looks like it disappeared. Oops.
Oh. That's cool. Whatever that is. Oh, let's unselect this one. Sorry. Unselect that one. Okay. And
Where is it? Here it is.
then- okay.
And now,
See, it's recognizing
Haley.
also
yeah.
Haley.
Yeah.
So
Oh, she's gone now.
I'm not really sure why it's not.
Did you have other questions?
I have one suggestion for that video. And you still haven't been able to download it.
No, but
Do you have an iCloud account?
I think so.
So it's much better to just kind of get rid of the phone portion of it and go to iCloud on your machine. and download it onto your Mac.
I don't have a Mac. That's
Or sorry, on your PC. It doesn't matter.
You know, the other thing I was going to try doing was, I'm going to cancel this for a second and see if I can send it to YouTube, because that's the way.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to.
You should be able to
No, I can't even cancel it.
send it to the Google Drive, and it's not, the Google Drive is not showing up on the phone.
I think, well, he might not have the app.
I don't think I
It's
do.
an app, but it's much better to download from your iCloud onto the desktop and then re-upload wherever you want it. I don't understand the logic, but I think the
I'll try
computer
it
has
one
a
more-
more robust.
I'll try it one more time. Hi, Felicia.
Hi. I don't know if this happens to other people, but it usually takes me a while for it to even work. It took me almost 10 minutes this time, so that might be where other people are.
Sorry, say it again.
To get connected to this, it took me almost 10 minutes. So I don't know if that's where everybody else is, but sometimes it takes a while.
Okay, we can turn my volume up. Let me try this one more time and see if I can send it to YouTube. No. It's still saying Lisa's MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll go online and try to figure out how to. I mean, I should have iCloud photo sharing because I have an iCloud photo sharing.
You wouldn't want to share it with anyone from your iCloud. You'd want to download it.
It's already on that.
Yeah, and you want to download it onto your computer, and from there upload it to YouTube. I know it sounds
The problem is I
two
don't.
steps, but
I have a PC,
it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. I don't think.
so I should find
You
it. Find an
Google
i.
iCloud and log in.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to download it.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Let me make a note to myself. I'm obviously not computer savvy.
That just consistently works for me.
It's iCloud photo sharing, right?
Yeah, so you go to get the video off iCloud, download it.
Okay.
Upload it to where you want it to go from your desktop.
I
Okay.
have another question. Can you go back to this one?
Yeah.
How did you get?
So Felicia, people are just asking questions about assignments. If you have any questions.
Yeah, I did. I wrote a couple down. Let me look for them.
Okay. I'm just gonna go close the door.
So sometimes they'll add lines. And merge. Merge the whole bunch in the background.
That's not specifically what I was asking. I was just trying to copy.
The 8 hours that they're allowed to be in the theater,
Right.
does it include like if the rehearsal started at say 2:00 and we went all the way to 8 hours later, does it include like getting set up and stuff, or just the things we're accounting for?
Say that again?
So for example, if we have rehearsal at 2:00, we
Right.
would probably start showing up a lot earlier than 2:00. But are we counting that within the 8 hours, the extra time it usually takes to get set up?
The setup in the theater is part of that. But there's no reason your dancers couldn't warm up in another studio. That would help save time.
Okay, and then
We generally here include half an hour setup, but that's at the beginning of the first rehearsal of the day, not every rehearsal block.
okay, and then if there's like a full hour break, do we need to count that hour as an hour being used within the theater?
No.
Okay.
So
Okay, I think that's
yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Available the 17th through the 19th. I put that in, so that's basically time for the sound and lighting designers to pre-cue the show. That's why I put that in there.
Okay, great.
Because they don't require the stage, but they do require the booth.
Okay.
So anything else? Okay. If you think of things as we go along.
4-hour rehearsal is just for- Yeah, I think that actually, I think I left my room. I probably will have sessions.
The only part of this that's actually tricky, and I kind of threw it in there to have you solve it, was the fact that Zinnia can't come to rehearsal until the end. And where are you going to put dress rehearsals if you have to stop to space her rehearsal, that kind of thing. Should be sure this isn't one of us. No, it's you. Okay,
It's one of us. That's
it's
me.
one of you, but not Jermaine, or Sean said he wasn't going to be here. I just wanted to show you what a completed production book looks like this is stage management for a play, but I wouldn't expect it to be any different than if you're doing like a story ballet. It's going to be somewhat different for contemporary dance. They're going to be a lot shorter. But if you want to look through this after class or at some point, it includes every single thing from the audition forms. It includes, Katie put the glossary in here just in case she doesn't know a word that somebody else uses. The thing that's the most interesting here and is pretty common in the theater is there are 2 complete scripts. One is for the blocking and the other one's for the lighting cues. I mean, for all of the cues, excuse me, not just lighting. So first she has blocking like this. And a lot of times stage managers set it up so the script's over here.
Right.
So it's easier to write the blocking over here. There's all kinds of documents before this, and then there are documents after this, running lists and that sort of thing. And then, so to call the show, she's broken down the show, and the show is broken down this way into all these little tiny scenes. So if you have to go back in a tech rehearsal and go, I need this page, she knows exactly where to go. She just has the tab. But this is the way, I think one of the best ways to put cues into your script. So these kind of Post-its are movable. So because they're going to move all the time, especially in dance. So this kind of thing is really helpful.
Wow.
And she has her production analysis. Anyway, she's got basically everything in here. And this is the kind of thing you, if you're going to go to grad school, this is the kind of thing you have to submit with your application. I don't know in an interview if they would ask to look at this. They may. So it's always good to have one that's in perfect shape. She has all the rehearsal reports in here as well. Okay.
Is there like a theater rule about when you purge things like that, like taxes, you hold your taxes for 7 years? Does a theater hold on to their?
The theater doesn't actually own those, the
So
stage manager
does,
does,
right.
which is unfortunate, but we seldom come back to things. So I have my binder as a lighting designer. I have all of them for the last 10 years.
Wow.
Because if I think, oh my God, I want to do this the way I did that, it's there.
Mm.
Talk a little bit about the call board. Most of this comes right out of our book. But the call board is a backstage bulletin board for the cast, the crew, and the staff. It is usually near the stage door, or it's in a place that all of those people would pass every day. This book is written from the standpoint of Broadway shows. So those people always enter by the stage door, and there's a guard there that lets them in. It's just like the way it is in the movies. And that's where their call board is, right by the stage door. We don't have a stage door here where the performers enter.
So where's our call board?
It's out here.
Okay.
And the reason it's out here is because our call board is staff. It's only used by the cast and crew. So the master electrician is not going to go out and look at it. The only thing related to tech and production is when the crew starts. First day of tech, their schedule's up there. They sign in up there as well. So that's the perfect place for them because that's when where they have to be anyway. For the stage managers, it's good to post your phone number in big letters and possibly the ASNs if you want. The schedule, of course. Sign-in sheets. So sign-in sheets can either start from the very first rehearsal or they can start at the first tech. That's how we do it here. It's different in every theater. The company rules are there. Emergency phone numbers. And then if you have the room and you have a lot of people from, say, out of town, you wouldn't have cab companies anymore because people have the Lyft app on their telephones, but, nearby restaurants or a place that could deliver food, anything that would make somebody from out of town make their life easier. If there's room on your call board, you could put that information too. And then the safety information about fire and those sort of things is often up there. So generally our call board is a good example. It's organized in the following way. It's a big call board. One half is for the theater program, one half is for the dance program. In the dance program, it's divided into, there's a section for announcements, a section for schedules, a schedule for sign-in sheet, and a section for contact information. And you want to have extra push pins there, though the stage manager is the sole owner of the call board. So,
What was the third part? You said announcements, schedule, and contact sheets, and
sign-in sheet.
Right.
And sign-in sheets, if it's complicated, it's sometimes better to just put in sign-in sheet for a week instead of entire production, because you could have, we're doing a show with 13 people and a crew of 20. So already you have 33 people having to sign in when they come in. So generally it's week by week. So push pins, and then as long as it lasts, you should have some sort of a writing implement that's on the string. And that's basically all I wanted to say about call boards. I don't know, anybody want to say anything about call boards? Okay, so the next thing I want to do is go over the contents of the stage manager kit. And we are using the one that Relly has. This is what she has in her stage manager's kit. I think they're two.
oh, sorry.
It's on the front and back. A lot of it is very intuitive and obvious. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that are special. Under Post-it tabs, you really do need to have all different shapes and sizes. Particularly, I discovered this when I started working in opera, is that you have to have those kind of Post-it tabs that are just a little, I don't even know what they call them, just like a little rectangle, because musicians use them all the time. And they're constantly asking if you have them. So really having, excuse me? Yeah, even smaller than that.
Oh, really?
It's a colored thing. I don't know, they're like 1/2 inch high and 3 inches long. And there's, I think the adhesive maybe on the clear part. And they come in little packets of 4 different colors that you pull out like a Coke out of a machine, sort of. Chalk is good if you need to do something for temporary spiking, you know, that you didn't want to lay down spiking tape during rehearsal, so you would just use chalk to mark the space. Of all these things, the most important thing to have is safety pins, I think, and sometimes they disappear. This has arnica on it, in particular for dancers, I think. Dancers seem to be a lot more, take a lot better care of their bodies than other performers. Not that other performers don't take care of their bodies, but dancers are particularly attuned to that. And so besides their diet restrictions, some people just want to take arnica instead of ibuprofen. It has instant ice packs, and just a note that if it's possible to use a freezer, ice packs just don't get cold enough, really cold enough. So fortunately have a freezer here in the lobby, so it's always good to use real ice when possible. Then Relly has added the ballet dancer specific items on the bottom. Did yours print probably because my toner just ran out?
It's readable.
Yeah,
You can read it? Okay. So those are obvious things,
What was
except
the
for
last
butt
one you
glue,
just said?
something I'd never heard of. You guys may have heard of. So I went online to see what it is. It sounds like it's a little bit like spirit gum, except it's removable with makeup remover, not with acetone. Keeping your leotard in place, I think. So I can't imagine what kind of glue, if you're moving around as much as a dancer, would actually keep it in place.
Also, it's not on here, and it's like for the ballet dancer specific, and it depends on the surface, but rosin.
Yeah, that wouldn't go in the stage manager's kit, probably. I have it noted for auditions, but that's a good point. Where would it go? You know, in a ballet company, it's just there, usually by the entrance to the stage. That's a good question. If you remember, you can ask Relly when she comes in to teach class. I could make up an answer, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think this is a good thing for you guys to have just for future reference for your own files. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about auditions. You have two instruments related to auditions, an audition flyer and an sign up and posted them. So first I'm going to talk about, because obviously geared towards. So of course you want to make everyone as comfortable as possible. Generally, it's best to have 3 areas. I think arrive, and then you want a waiting area that's a lobby, a green room, whatever age. You have the audition area. And we will talk about that when I refer to the notes from these choreographers. For dancers, it's nice to have a warm-up room and a mirror and bar. It's also nice for singers. Singers need to have a place to warm up. So if it's at all possible to have that extra space, that's great. Excuse me. So for a dance audition, the equipment that you would want to have as a stage manager is, you said, you need your stage manager's kit, but you also need to know where the industrial first aid kit is. That's in a space like this, I think legally you're required, like the shop has to have one. So best to know where that is. In advance, if there's sound equipment needed or a piano, and sometimes the piano and often if you're doing like if you're doing a musical, there's somebody that needs to be there to play the music audition. So musical, there's generally 3 sets of auditions, the acting, singing, and then they bring them all together at the end. But even for just a dance audition, it's possible that you would want a piano there if the choreographer wants to see the dance combination in a group, a ballet combination. Videotaping equipment, a lot of times that's needed. I think it's assumed that you should have that in your mind and figure out a way to send it to them. And you need to have the rehearsal schedule, which I will go into in more detail later on too. So any hand import for the people auditioning. Resumes, when you're doing a show with students, they often don't have a lot of professional experience and they don't have resumes. So we provide them with this kind of form. This is you could imagine what it would be like for a dancer. And it's often, that's one reason why it's good to have video, because if they don't have a resume, a lot of times they don't have 8x10s and they don't have the money to spend on 8x10s. You may want to, if you want him or hers of the dancers when they come in, because they're seeing a lot of people, their name is going to become, yeah. So, you know, and once again, and smartphone, so that serves the purpose. And remember all the forms and the resumes. So one thing that happens here is they give the resumes, the director often takes the resumes with them because they have to make their decisions and they need those remind them first who that person is, and then they've also put notes on it a lot of times. So that means manager need to have a really good contact list when people sign. So you're not sure to get their telephone number, and that's when they check in. So even here, when we do auditions, it's ideal to have a 3-member stage and to check people in as they come in. Somebody else to run the sound and the video and run all the electronic equipment or take pictures. And then the stage manager themselves would run the audition and be there with the choreographer to assist them. No. So you must have auditioned. You were to. Is there a formal audition?
It's pretty informal. At least informal. It was a time slot, like a class time slot, and you went into the studio and the choreographer was there, and no resumes. In fact, no forms, because this dancer was responsible for saying, "I can't make those rehearsals." They wouldn't show up to the audition if they couldn't make the rehearsals. Okay. So there's not even a sign during class time where I think there might be a sign up, but again, it's some sheet on, no one's organizing it.
Right.
The choreographer kind of is the organizer.
So all these things I'm referring to have to do when they're a number of people showing up for auditions, and
I mean,
most of them are strangers. So you really have to be organized. Just a little sideline. I was lucky enough to be a production assistant on a Broadway show. It was my internship in grad school. And one of the things that nobody on the team wanted to do, so I got to do it, was when you're auditioning for a show in New York, a union show, an equity show, generally, the director and the producer have cast the show through agents. We cast before the show is announced. But equity requires you to have auditions for all equity members. And so hundreds of people show up, and equity says you have to spend at least 90 seconds with each one of these people. And I did that for 2 or 3 days when I was doing this.
I'm Street to have been waiting your graduate career to go audition. And the thing was, they already knew who they wanted to choose, but because of the equity requirements, they had to hold a public audition and give everyone a certain amount of time. So
That surprises me because,
they would
first of
teach
all,
the
they,
combination, we would dance it, and 90 seconds later, all of us would be cut except for one person who they knew they wanted.
and this was for just the Hubbard Street Dance Company,
Yeah.
because they're not a member, probably, of AGMA.
Well, I don't know that it was equity, but
Yeah.
whatever.
I didn't realize AGMA required have those requirements.
It was a
But one thing they
requirement.
do have is that they often haven't cast is understudies, which is really a good leg up, and particularly
Yeah.
where they're used all the time. But they're also like small parts, need super dance pieces. Not so there is opportunity sometimes, but they can be pretty degrading experiences, and we are going to talk about that a little bit later too.
Yes.
How to make life better for those people who come in and audition. So yes, I'm regarding union rules, and I just went online just to verify this. Ballet dancers for large companies are often members of AGMA. And so when they're performing with a large ballet company, they sign the union contract. However, AGMA dancers can audition for any show. It's different than equity and AFTRA and SAG. Once you become a union member as an actor or a Broadway dancer, when you are in equity, you can't be in non-union shows except for like workshops or theaters that have less than 49 seats. It's very specific, and that's the reason why so many people really give a lot of thought to deciding if they want to become union members or not. But not this isn't for dancers. But if you were to be a Broadway dancer, it'd be a big deal.
By AGMA is the American Guild of this.
Right.
So ballet dancers would
Right,
sometimes are
ballet
at union
companies, yeah,
companies.
like San Francisco Ballets. Now, AGVA, which is the American Guild of Variety Artists, I'm not sure. I think a lot of people in Las Vegas are members of that union. Obviously magicians are, but it's a bigger union than just for musicians. Okay, so those are the things that came out of the book that I think were relevant to dance. So I read these 2 articles, one by a choreographer. Actually, they're both by choreographers. And I think it sounded like they ran these rehearsals without a stage manager. But they are by the fast stage manager there. They become the stage manager. They are a one-man show, so to speak, a one-person show. So first of all, audition announcements, and I'm asking you to do this. I know you have to do it in other classes, but I do want you to create a flyer for the audition. So when it comes to marketing, a stage manager has no responsibilities except sometimes they are in charge of marketing the auditions. And they are here in the theater program. The stage manager and the production manager do all that promotion. But they shouldn't be asked to do anything else. Stage manager would not do that. So you want to make a flyer that's attractive and appealing, and do whatever you can. Like, I am desperately trying to find people for Jan term, so I made this giant banner of Miss Nelson, which is hanging outside of the building right now, just trying to attract people. So far nobody's, we have very few people, but we will once registration starts.
What do you mean? Could you be more specific about what you're looking for Jan term?
So Jan term, I teach the Jan term children's theater course, which is putting on children's theater play for thousands of little kids. And it's only underclassmen can take the class unless they've concluded all of their upper level units. I don't think grad students, you guys can't do it because
I'm just
you guys
asking what you look like.
what we're looking for.
Right, like when you posted a flyer for this, but what is I haven't seen it, the flyer that you're looking
So we're looking for people who can do everything: act, dance. Act and sing. I'm also looking for either a male or female who has a little dance experience, who could choreograph a couple of sections. It's not a dance show, but there are moments that require choreography.
So you're mentioning this in regards to the audition flyer that you've created for it.
Right.
Got it.
The audition flyer. So if you go out there, first of all, the audition flyer just announces the audition. If you go out and it tells people to go sign up at the box office. And when they arrive at the box office, there's a sign-in sheet, but then there is also an audition information sheet, which lists the characters. I'm going to go into that in a second. So we'll talk about it in terms of dance.
For our flyer, are we creating the audition for anything to do with the show or no?
Anything you want.
Okay, cool.
It should just have the pertinent information, which I'm now going to discuss. So this first article was from somebody from Nimbus Dance Works, which is in New Jersey. Yes, in New Jersey. So their audition announcement said Nimbus Dance, and they're looking for one person, so they probably didn't make a flyer for this. They may have, but this is probably something they posted in different places. Whatever the rag is in New York that dancers go to look. Anybody know what they, I mean, in Los Angeles, you look at Variety, but not in New York.
What is that? I mean, the website Backstage, people subscribe to that, but I'm sure Broadway stars, like Broadway people have.
Yeah, there is actually a dancer one online too. I discovered it by mistake when I was looking for this stuff. So Nimbus Dance Works seeks a male dancer for immediate hire for the company's 2018-19 season, including performances at BAM, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, and touring world premieres by artistic director Samuel Pott, new commissions by a bunch of other people. And I'm just saying that because this is the kind of information you want to let that dancer know. Dancer should have professional experience, excellent modern and ballet technique. So whatever you want as a choreographer needs to be there, whether it's jazz, modern, African, that should be included there. And strong, this says, and strong partnering skills. Dancers should be prepared to work at a high technical level, which I think is a good thing to put on there so you don't get real amateurs who may not know that this company is, a professional company. Dancers should be prepared to work at a high technical level, collaborate creatively, be a responsible group member, and work towards community impact through the arts. I'm going to post all of my notes from today because there's about 11 pages of them here. So I will post them. I can't figure out how to post documents to Moodle, so that's why I've been sending them by email. Just making a note for myself. Okay. So this information needs to be out there somewhere. I wouldn't think all this information needs to be on a flyer, because the flyer is you're just trying to attract people to come to audition. But somewhere this information that I'm giving you needs to be, whether it's on a form, like if people sign up in advance, which a lot of times people sign up through their computers, through the website of the dance company, you could send this back to them the moment they sign up.
Or it would be on the website.
Or on the
This
website.
flyer has a link, has connection to the website. You go to the website, you get all this information.
Exactly. You wouldn't want to put all. Hi, Jermaine.
Did you get my email?
Probably not, because I did now.
Okay.
We're talking about auditions for dance companies. So I'm sure you have a lot of information that you can provide. We're talking about right now what information needs to be made available to dancers once they signed up to audition. So I just mentioned what kind of work. I'm going to go back. It's a dancer should have professional experience, excellent modern and ballet technique, and strong partnering skills. Dancers should be prepared to work at a high technical level, collaborate creatively, be a responsible group member, and work towards community impact through the arts. This is from a place called the Nimbus Dance Company. Do you know? You know them? Company contracts consist of approximately 35 weeks of work, September to June, followed by a possible 3 to 5 week summer extension with additional touring, blah, 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 all this information. So obviously the person needs to know if it fits into their schedule.
Yeah.
All rehearsals, performances, and teaching are paid at competitive rates. Dancers of diverse backgrounds are encouraged to audition. So that information, once people sign up, you need to get that information to them somehow.
One thing that I will add, Matthew, is that as it's related to my statement of purpose for St. Mary's, I find that many of the times, as far as rates are concerned, that if dancers don't ask, they don't have an option, if that makes sense. And so I think as it's related to your contract specifically, that there needs to be, of course, as you related to competitive rates, I think that has a lot to do with experience and a lot to do with sometimes tenure in companies, because there is a order in company, as you well know. You have your principals, you have your guest artist, you have your core, you have your subs or swings, if you will. And so those rates are adjusted accordingly in your contract. And so I think too, as we relate to dancers' rates and contracts, that we must really remember that that's an integral part, what you're getting paid, to think about in the audition process. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. We can all hear you.
At this point in my life, one of the first things that I look at when I get an audition from my agent is the rate and the amount of sacrifice and the amount of what I bring to what I'm auditioning for. Is it worth it for me? At this point, there has to be a bit of equivalency there for me, or reciprocity there, right? With the amount of experience that a dancer or a principal dancer, a guest artist would have, the rate has to be accordingly. And so I think that that's very important as we reference auditioning and taking those type of things into account. I'm sorry.
Did you say something about this relating to St. Mary's at the beginning, or was I confused? It's, oh, the statement of purpose, was that a
Yeah.
St. Mary's?
My statement of purpose for St. Mary's, I wanted to, it's a long, well, you know, that's a long paper. But one of the things that I mentioned in my paper, it's talking about bringing a sense of consciousness and equality to the artist. And the way that we get that is by speaking out, because many of the times dancers accept what they're given. They accept what they're given. They don't ask for what they want because they're just excited for the opportunity.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That they don't think outside of the box of, you recognize that companies have a budget, right? So what they're offering you is not necessarily what they can pay you. Does that make sense? So if it, yeah, no. What's okay? So I've danced for a couple of companies, right? So what some people were making comparatively their first year in the company, right, or their third year in the company, some people don't make. Does that make sense? So it goes back to your.
This needs to be very clear when you send out audition information.
I'm sorry. Say that again. I'm sorry.
The level of compensation. Is that what you're talking about?
I can't hear you. We broke up.
Okay.
Say it one more time.
Can you turn off your mic so I can talk? I think you may hear better if I.
Yes, sir. 1 second.
So are you saying that it's best to include the compensation, specific compensation information on an audition information sheet?
No. What I am saying is that comparatively, many auditions now will say either Dancers Alliance rate, which is a specified rate, or it's equity, AGVA, AGMA, SAG-AFTRA, right? And so we know that those rates are competitive, right? And that if the company does have like Lula Washington, she did Avatar, right? And so her company that she brought in on the film, even though they have a company contract, that contract was overridden by the SAG-AFTRA agreement between James Cameron and Lula Washington. So these type of things is what I'm really referencing, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be the actual number of compensation, but when we get to the point of prepping for our audition, we must take these things into account, and that's simply what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Taking into the account what is necessary, what you're willing to provide, what you're willing to sacrifice as it is related to auditioning, because it is a process, right?
Right. Okay. Thank you. So the announcement goes on to say where the home studio of Nimbus Dance Work is, where they perform, the dates and times of the auditions, and the location. And then it says how to apply, complete Google form. Then it gives you the Google address, and send resume and current headshot to so-and-so. For more information, please visit their website. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the actual audition now. So I'm just going to read most of this because I think it's really interesting. Auditions are an extremely important part of the dance world. Instructors are searching for the ideal candidate to fill a spot or create a team group. So this is actually for students auditioning. Whether they're auditioning to be in a dance school or auditioning to be part of some other event outside of the school. But this is geared towards students. By having an audition, students are introduced to the audition process early and are able to become accustomed to everything it entails. There are a few things that an instructor must keep in mind when preparing for an audition. This article will not only go through these steps, but also include helpful hints and tips for a truly successful audition. So first of all, what are the dancers auditioning for? The first step, okay, so we talked about that, and Jermaine brought this up too. Are they auditioning to be a soloist or part of a team or a group? What style of dance is going to be featured? We just talked about that too. Will there be multiple styles? Where will they be performing and for whom? Do they need to be a certain age, skill level, or any other physical requirements for that job? It says in parentheses here, if a dancer is unclear about the purpose of auditions, he or she may decide not to participate, which could result in a small turnout. I don't know if you ever have a small turnout, but being clear from the start is very important to establish trust between the people organizing the audition and the people auditioning. By having clear guidelines, the instructors know what they are looking for and the dancers know what they are auditioning for. Clarity helps things to start out on a positive note. And so a lot of things that thread through all of these notes is trying to set up a situation where it's not a competition, even though it is a competition, but that, you know, you're all part of the same dance company and that the people sitting behind the table are part of the same company that you're auditioning for. Whatever you can do to make it an inclusive experience in every definition of that word. Okay, so how do you choose the place, the date, and time for an audition? Jermaine, just so you know, I'm going to post these notes or send you these notes after the class. Okay, so you need a space big enough for the audition. It's a ballet company. You're often going to need a bigger space. Is there a place for the choreographer, stage manager, et cetera, to sit? And that doesn't just mean sit, but you need to have distance between the auditioning area and where the choreographer is sitting. It's hard to do an audition in a dance studio if they're right up against the mirror. How many days will you be needing the venue? Is there lighting, electrical, ventilation system working and reliable? This is all stuff that would fall to the stage manager. So here's some examples. If an audition takes place somewhere overly large, like a gymnasium, there could be an issue with the acoustics. Large spaces can cause an echo or can drown out a voice. Not hearing clearly could put a dancer at a disadvantage. When judges are present, if they cannot hear, they cannot hear each other clearly, both the people who are watching the audition and those auditioning. Regarding a place for the choreographer and stage manager, they need to have a table large enough for them to take notes on, and also generally that's a place where the resumes and the audition forms are put, so you need a table like at least this size that we're sitting at. If the venue is to be used for multiple days, choosing a place that is not usually a largely trafficked area is a good place to hold an audition. So those are all things that you need to take into consideration when you're picking the place for the audition. It's important to consider the amenities in the room, reliable electricity, so you can plug in your amp and speaker. You have to have good enough lighting to see, and also good enough lighting for videotaping and taking photographs. You need a good ventilation system. Dancers need to be able to be warm enough, and yet it also needs to be cool enough so the room doesn't get too warm. I find that to be a big issue. If you're auditioning in a theater, I took a lot of amateur ballroom classes for years, and so I had to do a lot of the dancer warm up and stuff. And during that time, I got used to exercising in a relatively warm room. And so I am constantly aware, like in this theater, it always feels too cold for me because I like to be really warm as a dancer. So I'm like, is the temperature constantly asking, as a stage manager, asking the person in charge, whether it's an audition or rehearsal, is it warm enough for you? Or cool enough for you? And those kind of large spaces take like 24 hours for the temperature to change. So it's just a really good thing to know. I don't know if you guys find it cold in there. Yeah.
When I was auditioning for Sing Boogie Can Dance, we sat for days in a theater that was about 60 degrees, and then you have to get up and perform.
Yeah.
At the moment they call you. There were so many injuries because of it.
Yeah.
So I assume that, the stage manager needs to know ahead of time how they're going to heat or cool that space. Even when I go teach classes, like the winter is very different. I have to show up an hour ahead of time to put the heat on so that the dancers can move around.
And I think it's important, just like we tell our crew members when they come in for tech rehearsals, to wear layers of clothes because they often have to sit for hours to wait and do a shift. There's no reason why you shouldn't put that on an audition form.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, often the stage manager is in charge of marketing the auditions, even though they are not usually in charge of marketing the actual performances. So once the venue for the auditions is booked, the time has come to start marketing. Be sure to remember the target audience of those you want to audition. Posters and flyers, we talked a little about that. Jermaine, I just posted a sample flyer to Moodle. You guys need to do a simple flyer for your dance auditions as part of your final project. You need to find the right place to post these flyers. And also you need to determine, do I really need to have a big poster? Or can I get away with an 8.5 by 11? Where is it being posted?
On this subject here locally, are there any suggestions for that sort of thing? Like, what are good resources for us here locally to do?
So for all things related to life as a dancer, choreography, dance company, you need to refer to Dancers Group. They will tell you everything. They're a great service organization. And there'll be people who would pick up, they'll be there to answer the phone and answer your questions. Because I could guess, but they're a fantastic service organization, just like we have, I think, what's considered the best theater service organization in the country. And they've got all that information. So.
Are we responsible for this assignment to make a list of everywhere we would post?
No,
this? Okay,
I just want
a flyer.
A flyer, yeah. As you all know, social media has become the most important way of marketing, whether it's an audition or a performance. It's good to post on a regular basis on social media, but I am a fan of the Margaret Jenkins Dance Company, which is a really big contemporary dance company here, and they're on tour in Sweden right now. And she's been posting to Facebook like twice a day. It's really annoying. So don't go overboard because it can be annoying and people will stop looking. Talking up auditions, that's the most important thing. Like I sent an email to all the theater professors today saying, please talk up the Jan term auditions in your classes. Be sure if you're auditioning children that you involve the parents, of course, in the audition process. And then word of mouth is, of course, the best marketing tool in no matter what kind of thing you are marketing. So. There's more detail here, which you can find online. So if you're doing a really big audition, there's two ways of setting up the audition signups. So one is an advance check-in, which this dance company uses. You can go to the Google site that I just mentioned, and you can sign up in advance. And if it's a really big audition, they probably will assign you a number at that time, because in big auditions, dancers get slapped with a number that they have to put on their bodies. So there's that kind of audition. There's a kind of audition where they sign up in advance, which is not, we can do that at a school, but that's not a very good way to do it anywhere else. So then you can just have an open call so the people come that day and they sign up for an audition slot when they arrive. And then you get all the contact information, as I mentioned. This says once sign up has closed, this is for the kind of audition that people are showing up without an assigned slot. Organize a list of participants from A to Z by last name, then assign each dancer a number starting with 1. Make sure there are no duplicates. So if they've signed up in advance, they check in at a table and you give them a number, or else if they're signing in at the door, you give them a number at that time. Okay, so one note I wanted to make in regards to audition signups, and I'm asking you to do an audition signup, which is kind of a dumb exercise. It'll take you 5 minutes, but I'd still like you to do it. So it's really important in an audition signup that you have either that you have enough breaks in the auditions for the people who are holding the auditions to take breaks, but more importantly for auditions that run over. So a good rule of thumb is if you're having 10-minute auditions, to have like 5 auditions in an hour and the last 10 minutes is not assigned. Or you can go for 2 hours and have a half an hour break, in which case that allows you, for the people who are watching the audition, to take a break as well as playing catch up. It is really good to have that because you will fall behind otherwise. And then people end up having to stay really late in the evening, which is not good. Notifying auditionees of casting. Generally, I believe in doing this in all ways possible. Sending an email, posting the list, sending to those people who weren't cast. You do need to send an email to everybody because those people who weren't cast will never know if they were cast or not. So you need to have one audition for those people who are cast and one email for those who weren't cast. And those people who are cast need to confirm with you that they're going to be in the show. Here we post the sign up and if they're taking the role, they initial it. So those are the notes for in terms of the whys, hows, whens of putting on an audition. This next piece is about creating the right atmosphere in the audition piece. And this was written by somebody named Laura, choreographer of a company called In Vertigo. And she was the one woman show. So she was the stage manager as well as the choreographer. Holding auditions reinforces for me the deep reverence I have for dancers. There's so much talent out there, so many people creating art with their bodies, and all of them are looking for a place in the world that will give them the space to dance. I feel so honored by the fact that people want In Vertigo to be that space, and so grateful that I am even in the position to offer such a thing. That said, auditions are a bitch. There's a balance of power inherently lacking. We talked about this a little bit. It is a competition and there's no way around that. There are the people running the audition and the people showing up for the audition. As a dancer, you are asked to throw yourself into movement in a crowded room to display perfection upon command and to subject yourself to the whim of the deciders. Very little attention seems to be paid to the quality of the deciders, it doesn't matter. They have the power. Yeah, you can find people in audition, be involved in their particular area. If the general manager's there, they probably shouldn't be saying a lot about whether the person has the right skills to do a particular kind of dance. Excuse me. She continues, I looked around on the internet for guidelines on how to run an audition in an efficient, fair, humanizing manner. There are dozens of pages dedicated to tips on how to ace an audition, but those are for the people auditioning. And a majority of those seem to be overly emphatic on the point of the makeup and clothing choices. I couldn't find any tips for the people running the audition, so I decided to broaden the attention of Invertigo's audition, or at least to be mindful of an additional role that I need to play in it. That is the role of the decider. Yes, a big part of my job during auditions is to find the best fit for the company to make decisions, however subjective, about who will be chosen. That's the obvious bit. And I should say that she's trying to create this atmosphere as a choreographer that it applies to the stage manager 100%. But there's another part of my job, one that I think is rarely discussed or acknowledged, as a role of those time, talent, energy, and hope that are in the room. I want to remind dancers that the other people in the room are their community, not their competition, which I understand is hard to remember when you're in the middle of all these bodies vying for the same role or position. I suppose part of my role is to create community out of chaos. Another also underemphasized part of my job is to make as many connections with dancers as possible, to get to know the people in my sandbox, and to open up a channel between them and my dance company, which lasts beyond the audition. Just one sort of, I don't know, isn't the nicest thing to say about it, but these people, the dancers who come to auditions, are also your future audience. You know that audiences for dance are dancers, so that's another side of this. I know many dancers' opinion of the company, and possibly me personally, will shift when they're cut in the first round, or when they don't make callbacks, or when they aren't offered a position in the company. The awful gut-twisting fact is that I can't hire everyone, and I know that. And it's all puppies and daisies and love your works until I have to say no. Many dancers handle it with grace, and they continue a relationship with the company and with me. I love that. My hope is to shift the focus away from rejection and toward the beginning of a relationship with one another. They now know me, and I know them. We are part of the same community. Note, this is a great reminder for me as the person who has been on the receiving end of so much rejection from grants, festivals, etc. I do try to keep positive about the grant makers and presenters who have been unable to accept the company's work. They are in a similar position to the one I'm in now. I can't protect my ego from their rejection by cloaking it in counter-rejection. That just feeds unnecessary negativity, even if it's easier, so much easier on the ego. So that's a good thing to know as the dancer when you come into audition, to know where the choreographer is coming from. Amid all this, I need to remain clear on my artistic vision for the company. I am looking for dancers who are fiercely good, who are so good that I am nervous walking into rehearsal because I know I have to live up to them. I want intelligent, curious, adventurous, hardworking people in the room with me so I don't get to the heart of a kinetic and theatrical experience. The dancers I hire, so I don't have to work around laziness, hesitance, or smile-mindedness to get to the heart of a kinetic and theatrical experience. The dancers I hire must possess empathy so they can work well with the other artists in the room. They must have solidly ingrained impressive technical skills, which they can then transcend by breaking the boundaries of their training. They must bring an intriguing artistic voice and a theatrical skill that spans from subtle moments to heightened emotions. I'm sorry about this. So there it is. I want to run an audition in which as few people as possible feel badly at the end. An audition which opens up connections between dancers and the company, an audition which fosters community rather than competition, and an audition which ends in my hiring fiercely good, intelligent, curious, adventurous, empathic, technically brilliant, artistically intriguing, and theatrically radiant dancers. Is that so much to ask? So I think that's a really important thing to talk about. And I'd like to hear from you about, so how do we do that? So I had a couple of ideas while I was reading that about how you create that situation, but I'd like to hear from you. So you're the choreographer of your dance company and you're having an audition. How do you create the most positive environment for the dancers?
I think learning people's names. I know, like, it's a subtle thing.
Yeah.
If possible, I know, like with these huge auditions, that's not realistic, but for a smaller Bay Area dance company, that is possible.
So that's why, you know, you're right. It probably couldn't be done for a huge open union call, but if the person at the check-in desk has a camera and can take a picture of that person and somehow get the picture to the desk where the choreographer is working with the person's name, they could possibly get to learn people's names. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that is one of the rudest things in the world. When a director or a choreographer doesn't pronounce somebody's name correctly and that person's been in rehearsal for 4 weeks, it just makes me shudder. And it happens all too often. Anything else? Other ideas?
I can speak on this.
Yeah.
In my company,
Can you speak up so they can hear you?
yeah. Well, by the nature of my company, it was called Soul Play. So when the dancers would show up, our initiation was always to, instead of leaving everything at the door, was to bring everything that you're experiencing in your life into the room. And that we created an atmosphere specifically as the choreographers to be a playful environment to see how they operated with different challenges so that we could really get a sense of the nature of them.
Uh-huh.
And as choreographers, I mean, generally you can tell what it is you're looking for in a relatively quick amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was less concerning to us. And what was more important was that we all had a shared community experience in this way, and that everyone left more feeling like they had a workshop instead of an audition. And within that process, we were sorting through what would be best for certain things. And also at the beginning, when we encouraged them to bring in what was going on in their world, that if they, we explained to them that while they may not be cast for this show, that the material that we were working through may indeed spark inspiration for future projects. Mm-hmm. So even if they weren't cast for the program that we were currently working on, that their information would be saved with us and they would keep hearing from us for future things, because it may well be something that we're going toward for the next show that has not been set yet. And I think that really, it was very successful for us. And it was also hard for us to limit the number of people that we were casting, because that kind of environment fostered so many people wanting to be involved, even if they weren't getting paid, because the process was so nurturing in that way. So we could have gone a little bit more on the side of like holding boundaries and saying no a little better.
So does that mean you called everybody as a group? Or
Oh,
did
yeah.
they? Okay.
It was more like a workshop experience, and and then at the end of the day there would be specific, like we would call these 3 people to do this piece of choreography together and just see how their bodies either worked well together or were in that competitive space of like, wow, these 3 dancers are best for this specific dance in the concert, and which one is going to do it best. So then we would like get more detailed toward the end of the day toward our artistic vision, but holding a group audition and making it more of a workshop space, even if it was just a class in the beginning that we were all going through, seemed to foster that community feeling and kept us in contact with people.
Great.
After the audition. And they would all come see the show.
Good, good. So Jermaine or Felicia, did one of you chime in? I thought I heard. You guys have any input on this, on how to create the best possible environment for auditions?
I just did, it's not even a big thing at all, but within one of my children's classes, we did auditions the other day for their musical theater little dance piece that they're doing. And I think the biggest thing is, even though they're kids, I feel like adults sometimes need this kind of encouragement too, of just telling them, you're making my job really hard because you're all doing such a great job that I wish I had more larger parts to give out. We all have, you know, important roles. But just letting them know that although you only get to choose a few, that everybody really is important within what you're doing, even if they're not cast in anything, to just not saying that you have to basically baby adults, but I feel like when you go to audition for something, you are really putting yourself out there, and to just let them know that you appreciate everything that everybody has to offer, although you only have this many spots to give, and how much you appreciate them giving everything they have to their audition, and how much it makes your job more exciting, but also harder because you have to then choose.
But lots of positive reinforcement.
Right. Because there's no reason not to, really.
Right. I think, so one thing, this is kind of obvious coming out of what both Bella and Felicia said, it's good to have extra time at audition so that you can spend time with people as a group. Maybe even if people are willing to stay through all the auditions. You can't make people stay all the way through the auditions, but you could encourage people and then do something with them at the end as well, to create a positive feeling before they leave. And, you know, then their people are just going to feel rejected, and, you know, you can't control everybody's feelings, of course. So anything else?
I was going to say simply kind of along the lines of what Haley.
Can you speak up?
I wanted to piggyback onto what Haley said about knowing names and to simply make eye contact and to listen. And that's something I think you could do regardless of the size of the audition. So if you have a person coming in, maybe you have their name in front of you and look at them and listen.
Yeah.
And you could have, I mean, it's hard, but I think it's the sort of skill that if you develop, it comes a little bit more easily, so that every person who comes in, you know.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just going to write that down. I want to see if there are any listening exercises we can do.
I know this sounds kind of pathetic in a way, but I really appreciate when you did not get cast email or contact. I've been to dozens of auditions where you never hear from them again.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful for the people who reached out and said, I'm sorry you were not chosen.
Mhm.
But it's important to,
Oh, it really is.
and that does not happen, especially in LA and bigger cities. That's at least from my experience.
And it's so easy to do.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm noticing how the casting from the choreographer's perspective, that the audition process from the choreographer's perspective is allowing me to see how to be a better stage manager from a choreographer's perspective
Hmm.
through this just today, because it's really felt separate for me until we've done this today. So grateful for that.
Yeah, I think a lot, we've talked about this, that stage managers who are dancers, not frustrated dancers who still want to dance, but have done some dancing in their life, it makes them that much better, both on understanding the physical and obvious signs of it, but also from an empathic standpoint.
And I think specifically the link today was that we're talking about choreographers who communicate.
Hmm.
Because so often what we do as dancers is a silent art. And so things like eye contact, that's something that's in our movement body and what our physical body is doing, and that's a form of communication.
Right. Well, even what you said about the room being too cold for Hubbard Street, that's a way of communicating disrespect for the dancers.
Well, I was in Hubbard Street, so we can dance, which is inherently tied into Fox television anyway. It's a
Okay, anybody have anything else?
I was just gonna add on to the whole, so you think you can dance. I did that when I was just out of college, and the audition process turned me off so badly that I never watched the show again, ever.
Same.
Like, it was so bad. They had us sitting in the theater for over 4 hours, and we were not allowed to use the restroom because they didn't have a working one. And if you got up to leave to go use the restroom, you could not come back in.
Oh my God.
It was, the whole process was awful. Yeah.
Same for me. I never watched it again. Even though my friends at court or something. Yeah. Send the video.
Okay, everybody. So we're going to start talking about rehearsals on Wednesday. It's a long chapter. We'll probably only get through part of it. Because obviously it's the meat of what we do. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you.